Hello, everyone, and I'm so glad to, I think, meet you all after a long time because in between we were having so many sessions with the authors and, even the virtual roundtable discussions. But of late, we have been busy with many other events. Now, today, I think it's been one of the most awaited author chats. I'm really excited for this one because this is not just a favorite of the BTB students, but at my home also. So today's guest is a very special one, and obviously you all already know who our featured author of the month is. She is none other than Shruthi Rao, who has wowed a lot of us with her amazing books. And I have so many questions also from the kids that I know that probably we may not be able to accommodate all of that during the session, but yes, we will try our best to take up as many as we can. So I don't want to waste any more time, and let's get her on stream and know more about her writing process, her books, and lots more. So here I bring her on stream.
Hi.
Hi, Shruti. So first of all, I want to tell you all that this time for this particular chat, we chose a different time, from the usual because Shruti is joining us all the way from California. So thank you so much for adjusting, that around your schedule, Shruti.
Oh, it's completely my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for
So for
having me.
the Yeah, it is a pleasure totally. And I'm sure you already know how excited we all have been for this session. So I would just like to introduce Shruti for all of you. Shruti Rao has written 9 books for children, both fiction and non-fiction, with 5 more on the way. Now that's quite interesting to know. And she writes a fortnightly column on Kid Lit for Deccan Herald. Originally from Bangalore, she now lives in the San Francisco Bay Area and loves books, trees, benches, desert, science, trivia, and long walks. Now, that's a very interesting profile, Shruti.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think we are already getting comments from the viewers. So definitely, in between the session, I will share some of these
Sure.
with you. But yeah, to begin with, Shruti, I do understand, from your profile, which is usually there on the books, that you were a software professional and then you made the switch. And I somewhere relate to it because even I was with Infosys and then I resigned to pursue my interest. So I wanted to know that how did that switch happen? Like what really triggered that, and was it a very difficult decision that time for you?
So, it happened very organically. I did not really I kind of sit, uh, I kind of wake up one day and say, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. So, I was on a maternity break
Mhm.
when my daughter was born, and at that time, the work I was doing wasn't really very exciting to me. It wasn't something I was passionate about,
Hmm.
and it didn't make sense that I wanted to leave my little baby and go for um, 2 hours in that Bangalore traffic and go and do my work and come back for 2 hours in that Bangalore traffic. It kind of didn't make sense to me. So by that time, I had already started blogging, and I had kind of started enjoying it. The blog was doing quite well. So I wondered what it would be like to completely change my career and go into writing. So it just happened. And it wasn't a very hard decision because it made sense at that time. And of course, I was lucky enough to have people uh, who have financial support. Otherwise, it would have been hard to let go of a well-paying software job and and completely go into uncharted territories, to so to speak. So that was how it was.
Right. Right. It's pretty interesting, because I relate to some of the things that you said, like from my own journey. So that was nice to know. So one thing I've been curious about is, like as a child, what kind of stories enraptured you? Like, of course, we now read your books, but when you were a child, especially, during those days, what were the kind of stories like, you've grown up reading? And do you think that today, as a writer, somewhere, those stories have been, like, they've probably contributed to the writing that you do today?
Um, so I like mysteries, Enid Blyton. Then uh, I moved on to Nancy Drew and Agatha Christie, Sherlock Holmes. That's same old
Yes,
things.
yes, right.
But I haven't written a single mystery, and I don't know if I can. But what I liked about all those stories that I read is that story, the the story was paramount in it, and that it was engaging. All those authors I read were excellent storytellers. They were really good at what they did. So although although those kinds of stories haven't inspired me to write those kind of stories, the style and the way that they wrote and the way that they caught the attention of the reader. So I'm aiming for that um, holding the reader's attention. So obviously, I'm still learning, but that is my goal ul- ultimately when I write.
Correct, correct, correct. Yes, yes. So I will probably just show you some of the comments. So Rashmi says, "Hey Shruti, hi
Hey,
Anupama, great to see
Rashmi,
you guys." And Sunila says,
oh,
"Writes lovely books."
thank
Yes, we agree.
you.
And yes, so Rashmi also shares that yes, Nancy Drew series and Enid Blyton books were a staple of her childhood and some wonderful memories there, definitely.
Totally.
That's so true. Yep, yep, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like when you were saying all those books, I was all relating it to my childhood because those days, that's what we all,
Yes.
have really enjoyed reading, and it's been really a part of our childhood. Okay,
Correct.
so now coming to your own books. Okay, so like I have of course read your books multiple times because of my daughter. Of course, we keep revisiting them. I realized that, of course, you have addressed really important issues, like say in Manya Learns to Roar, we've talking about this problem of stammering, and then, even in Susie Will Not Speak Again, it's a speech issue. And these are real challenges which is faced by many people. But I mean, I'm sure when you write about something like this, because you've also made it entertaining, right? I mean, you've tried to make the story relatable, entertaining, but at the same time, there is really an important issue being addressed. So, I mean, I just wanted to know one thing is that first is how did these ideas, like come to your mind? Why did you decide to write a book on these issues? And secondly, was it a conscious effort that okay, yes, I need to be very sensitive in the way I handle it in my writing?
So, for me, because I grew up, I still stammer. So, um, when I was a kid, it was quite bad. It was pretty bad, and I had a lot of struggle to, with bullies and with confidence and with wondering why it's happening to me, and people are commenting about me. So Manya Learns to Roar was just a direct uh, a result of that. I really wanted to write about a girl who is free of all the stereotypes associated with people who stammer. So generally people who stammer are portrayed as underconfident and weak and scared and cowardly and um, not quite right in the head and all that. So wherever I mean, when I was a child, all the movies and the books, whatever I read, had people who stammer portrayed in a less than a complimentary light. So I
Right.
wanted um, I wanted the children of today to know that it is not like that. Most of us are not like that. I'm not a bad person. I'm not afraid. I'm, I'm not stammering now because I'm afraid. I'm not stammering now because I'm not confident. It is a condition. So that is something I wanted to put across. So Manya came about naturally. It was although that story is not mine, Manya's story is not mine, but but all her experiences are a combination of what I experienced. So that came out naturally. And when I'm writing about something which actually happened to me, it's not, I don't have to worry about sensitivity because that's my story.
Right, right.
So so that I didn't have to worry. Whereas Susie will not speak, I had to be a little careful because it was a, a speech issue that I personally did not face. It was a lisp
Right.
in Susie's case. But I talked to people and I did some research and I found that the basic, the laughing at them and
Yes,
putting them down, that's the same, whatever it is. So that way to go ahead and write. Um, I was probably a little more um, concerned and worried about it, but not so much. It was okay.
right, right. I must say that actually we should thank you for coming up with books like this, because even as a parent, I think it becomes so easy to, make kids more sensitive towards this thing. Because if we sit and tell them, I think through books and stories, it works like much better. Even with my child, I realized that, when she reads this through stories,
Yes,
they understand this so much more, and I think it has
correct.
definitely made her more sensitive and understanding that yes, it's just a condition that people have, and there's nothing to laugh. We need to be
Yes,
understanding about it, and just support the person if they need any kind of help. So I
correct.
think yes, that's really wonderful. In fact, yeah, there are many people also have commented that Ramendra Kumar says that
Thank
Manya
you,
learns to
Ramendra.
road touch me at various levels. Yeah. And yes, even Sunila ma'am says the same thing, that she loved Manya Learns to Row. So many issues to relate to, definitely. And I think, yeah, it's not just I think the stammering. There were other things also, I think
Yeah.
within that story, again, there were many things we can actually take from it. So, hello, Aarti. Thank you for joining. And Ankita. Okay, so just to let you know, Shruti, Ankita is the mom of Manan, who was the
I
one who
I
reviewed.
realized. I realized. Hi, Ankita.
Yeah. So yeah, and he has really reviewed it beautifully, I
Yeah,
think. And
yeah,
yes, and yes, we agree with Ramendra that one of the
correct.
most effective way of helping kids empathize is through stories. Completely agree,
Correct.
because they won't sit and listen to our gyan, like, I mean, then they start.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it becomes
And
so
like
much
you
easier.
said, right? I mean, so I wrote Manya for people who stammer, I wanted kids who stammered to realize that, okay, there are people like me. But what I
True.
hadn't realized when I was writing is that other children who do not stammer also are sensitized. So that came about later, you know. So
Right.
that was a
Right.
bonus for me.
Yes,
That worked well.
indeed, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure that must be very satisfying as a writer too, because
it is, yes.
yes, you are, touching people with your words. So, Shruti,
Yeah.
what is your writing process like, if at all you have? Because I know different writers have different process in terms of, how they approach their writing, and you're also an editor. So, do you think even that helps you write better, in the sense that, you have a keen eye as an editor, I'm sure. So, if you could talk a little bit about your writing process.
So my writing writing process, it really differs. It depends on the book. Uh, some books, like for example Manya, I started writing it without knowing where it would go, and then it reached an end, and I was surprised at how it turned out. Whereas as something like Susie, it just, the idea was there and I had to work at it, I had to write it, I had to rewrite it, things like that. Whereas something like a non-fiction, which I also write, it requires an entirely different approach. It's research and then stop and then write a bit, some more research, stop and write a bit. So it really varies. What I aim for when I'm writing is that I I want it to be at least a little clear in my head. I kind of live with the characters in my head for a while, and then I write it down, which is ideal because
Right.
you have to be familiar with the characters. But having said that, Manya just happened, so that is against my own rules.
Yeah.
So it really varies. As
Right.
about being an editor, in at one level, it probably helps because I know that this is how a story has to be written. This is what works and that doesn't work, and at least kind of making up the sentences uh, uh, and proper grammar and proper punctuation, um, all that comes easily. But having said that, being an editor can be very hard when you're writing because I start editing myself as I'm writing. So the when you are writing, it is important to first put down everything on paper. But after I write a paragraph, I go and say, "Oh my God, what kind of a paragraph is this? Horrible! Look at that sentence. That's incomplete." And I start editing it, which is not the right thing to do for multiple reasons. One is it's not necessary at that point. You have to kind of get on with the story. The second thing is after you write 7 or 8 paragraphs, you might realize that the first paragraph is not necessary at all. Uh,
Yeah.
but you have already spent so much time editing it and like, oh no, it's such a beautiful paragraph. Look at that sentence, it's so nice. Can I please retain it somewhere? Can I add it somewhere else? I don't want to delete it. You start getting attached to that paragraph, right? So
Right.
so so it's I don't like being an editor when I'm writing. It's very hard to separate out the writer and the editor. I have to remind myself, look, Shruti, right now you're a writer. So editor Shruti has to be away right now. And
Right.
so, but it's still hard. Editor
I
keeps
can
popping up and saying, not right.
understand.
No, not
Yeah, I can completely, understand that. Yes, it must be very difficult to, like, you said, to make that
yeah.
demarcation in your head.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that is probably a challenge a lot of editors might be facing, when they
Yeah.
actually write, because I'm sure wo aa hi jata hai, that the editor OS does
Definitely.
come up. Yeah. Yeah. So I would like to tell the audience that if you have any questions for Shruti, please post them in the comments, and I will try to take them towards the end of the session. And so few more comments. So yeah, Shilpi says she's fantastic and an example to Gen X. Let's normalize it. Yes, thank you,
Thank you.
Shilpi. And there is a request actually from a teacher. She says that as a teacher, I have come across Manias and Susies, and I've come across bright and intelligent kids who don't perform and are labeled by teachers as dull. So, wish you can write a story about a case like that too. So, I think she means where kids, they're bright, but yeah, I mean, just because probably they don't get the grades, like they are
Right.
termed as dull. So, I think she means that.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a question from Sangeeta about where do you get ideas from, in general as a writer. So yeah, if you could just share. Of course, you did talk about how Manya learns to
Yeah.
roar was from your own experience, but in general, of course, because you write so many stories or even nonfiction. So where do you get those ideas from?
Um, so fiction, you never know. It might come from anything.
Right.
Some a conversation here or a comment somebody makes, or it might be a flower lying on a very uh, lying in a strange place. An object which is not supposed to be there, and then you start thinking why and things like that. So for fiction, it can just come from anywhere. It can come from something that happened to me or something that happened to other people. It can come from the news sometimes, one small line somewhere, and ta 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 ta, ta, once one entire story comes out.
Yes.
So so that really, it's very different. Nonfiction, once again, a nonfiction, much of what I have written has been commissioned. The publishers have asked me
Okay.
to write it, or uh, um, things like that. But other nonfiction books, it's just something that's really important to me. For example, my a forthcoming book is with Penguin Random House, and it's a STEM-based book about the discoveries and stories and the history uh, uh, behind discoveries and inventions. So that was my own idea. It was something I really wanted to explore and write about, and that's what has happened. So once again, it's really varied where the ideas come from.
Right, right. Yeah, I relate to, that how like suddenly something triggers, even as a writer,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
happens, sometimes you don't really plan to, look for ideas. Something just
yes,
triggers something
yes.
within us. So yes, that's so true. So, Shruti, one thing is very interesting I wanted to share with you and, also get your opinion from. So, at Beyond the Box, of course, as we work closely with a lot of children. And sometimes we do come across children who, in general, like they don't enjoy reading, they don't like books. And, the parents come to me saying that they are somehow, not reading. And then when I recommend books like Manya Learns to Roar or Susie Will Not Speak, or even other books, in
Yeah,
somewhat like a similar, genre, uh, I realized that they quickly took to these books, and they were actually then suddenly showing an interest in reading. And my understanding is probably relatability was one of the factors
hmm,
where these stories in an Indian setup with the kind of kids we they meet or they come across. I thought that that could be a reason. Why? Because earlier they were being exposed to literature, which is great, but maybe something that they were not able to connect to. So,
right.
so did you ever get these kind of compliments about your books where somebody came and said that, okay, my child is not really a reader, but they really liked reading your book? And also, do you also agree with this that sometimes, relatability does become a factor with children? Like maybe they don't get exposed to the right kind of books always. Right, as
Yeah,
in, right for them. I mean, like, in
correct,
that sense.
correct. Yeah, I think it does matter. Who was it who said that there's nothing like I don't like reading. It's
There is
just
this
that a
quote. Yeah,
person
yeah, yeah.
hasn't found the right book.
Yes,
I
yes,
don't
yes.
know.
I understood. Even I can't get the exact this thing, but yeah, I
Yeah.
understood that.
So so I don't know if that is really true or not, but I think there is some small uh, grain of truth there,
Right.
because everybody has a subject that interests them, or a topic, or something like that. So yeah, as long as you expose the child to as many kinds of books as possible, I'm pretty sure somewhere or other it will click. And if not now, then later, it's okay. And like I always say, sometimes some people don't like reading. That is okay too. It's not like everybody has to like reading. It's not a competition. The thing is, for us who love reading, we're like, how can she not like reading? It's so, but maybe it's not like that for everybody. You should try and make them interested, but if they are not interested, you should just move on. That's okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, some people really, it just matters what the book is about. Uh, 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 that kind of completely changes their idea about reading. And I have heard about both Manya and Susie. In fact, one child I know started reading chapter books, and because of Susie. That's what the mom told me. So things like that, they feel nice. And one more thing here is that some of my friends from, say, childhood, um, or my former workplace, who are not really into books, who are not really into reading, they have bought my books out of a kind of sense of friendship, or um, out of curiosity, and then there kids have read it and have liked it, and an entire world has opened up for them, in the sense of Indian writers. They're like,
Mm.
oh, there are Indian authors writing about Indian
Yeah.
things. I had no idea about it, kind of thing. So my book, for those people, it became a kind of a door for much more.
Yes.
Like, you know, the
Amazing.
kind of wealth that we have here in Indian writing. So that
Yes.
turned out well.
That's amazing. I'm sure that's really great feedback, I think, to get for your books, that
Yeah,
you've not just I mean, you've actually opened the door for them to even explore other writers. I think that's
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
I agree with that point that a lot of people don't know about the
Yeah,
wonderful books we have, like by Indian authors, and
correct,
even at Beyond the Box. That's the reason why we have a group where I recommend books on a weekly basis, and most of the times my effort I put in efforts that okay, let's only promote the Indian authors, not because the authors are not good, but yeah, because there is a
yes,
wealth of writers here who are
yes,
probably underrated or underhyped, and they deserve to be read
correct,
more. So
correct.
yeah, that's true. So taking on from what we were talking about, Shruti, so I mean, the problem these days that all parents, and you're a mom too, they have about the screen time of children, that they feel that, especially now with the COVID situation, everybody feels that the screen time has increased, and kids are not doing anything else. So I mean, as a mom, especially, not just as an author, but even as a mom, have you also faced that kind of struggle? And do you think it is easy to get kids out of that screen time mode into getting them into books? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
See, I can't speak I mean, I can't speak about everybody else, but speaking of my own daughter,
Right.
we, uh, until she was uh, probably 7 or 8, her screen time was almost it was very minimal, and it wasn't something that I enforce saying no screen time, because I don't believe in that. Screens are a part of our lives. It is
Right.
not something that we I cannot say screens are bad. Okay, they are bad, but it doesn't mean that you should completely shun them. So until she was about 8 or so, we it wasn't it was not a part of our daily schedule. We just kind of made it that way. So by that time, she had already completely gotten hooked onto books. So later on, when screens became a kind of more prevalent in her life, and especially now during the pandemic, we are all of us are always in front of screens. But yet, when my daughter wants a break and she wants to relax, she picks up uh, picks up a book. That is her first. That's her first love. So what I think is, maybe in the formative years when they are learning
Yeah.
to read, once they learn the joy of reading, after that, no matter how much screen comes in, no matter how much other stuff comes in, they will always go back to books, I think. Once again, I'm only speaking from the experience with one child, but I would think this is
Yeah.
logical.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think you made a very valid point there about if they actually discover, like you said, the joy of books
Yeah,
in the formative years,
yeah,
automatically they are going
yeah,
to reach out for that later on, and which is what even I always tell the parents, that the when they grow up, it becomes more difficult to get them, like, I mean,
yes, yes,
after the age of 10, if they come to me saying that, oh, my child is not reading, I think at that age it's a little difficult, like, I mean, so even with my daughter, I'm thankful that she has always loved books. So I'm hoping that yes, even when she grows up, she is going to stay that way and enjoy books. So that's wonderful. So I'll just again take some comments. So Sandhya has joined and she says hi.
Hi.
Okay, so there's a question from Rashmi. She wants to know if you're that when you're actually time bound, say having a deadline and are stuck for ideas, how do you deal with it? So, have you really had the situation ever, like where you probably had some deadline and you were stuck?
Yeah, yeah. So one thing is I respect deadlines extremely highly. So if I have a deadline of say December, I in my mind I consider November as the deadline because I'm I'm really strict about deadlines. But
Wow.
having said that, yeah, sometimes you're stuck and you have no idea what to do. But what I have found is if I struggle with that feeling of, oh my God, it's not working, what do I do? It starts getting worse. So, so I just say, yeah, okay, 2 days, no writing and no worrying. I'm going to read or I'll watch Netflix all day, you know. So I just let it go. I just embrace that feeling of stuckness. But having said this, I'm a I'm a writer who has longer headlines, and so it is easy for me. For a freelance journalists and for freelance writers who have shorter headlines, which is a Friday, not a, a, a December. I understand it's harder, but I would say still embrace it because you cannot struggle against it. Embrace it and then get
Right,
over it. You will get over it because once the
right.
deadline looms, you have to do it. So that's I I, I don't know if that helped or not, but that's my way of dealing with it.
Right, right. Yeah, I am sure, yeah, that works and that makes sense. So I hope that answers your question, Rashmi. Um, there's an interesting comment from Sunila ma'am. She says that Shruti has written such a, beautiful, informative article about the trees of Lal Bagh, full of history too, of the trees. I didn't know about this. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, ma'am, and I'm going
Oh,
to check
you're
that
so
out.
sweet, Sunila. Thank you.
Indeed, indeed. And Ramendra says, once a reader, always a reader. Yeah, when we were talking
Yes,
about the book.
yes.
And so Rashmi says, thank you for the great advice.
I hope it helps, Rashmi.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. Okay. So, Shruti, now and beyond the box, of course, we work with children on honing their creative writing skills and um, see, I mean, I know they do get a lot of gyan from me, from many people, but, as a writer and especially as somebody, who writes for children, what are some of the practical, tips you would give children that, okay, how they can be better writers, how they can express, themselves in a more effective way, in a way that they can actually connect to people with their writing. So, from your side, based on your experience, what are some of those practical suggestions that you would give the kids?
So, one thing is when you're reading, uh, notice what you like and what you don't like. So, kind of be aware of it. Why am I not liking this passage? So, you know, that will that will give you ideas what about what good writing is. And more than anything else, I would say uh, go outside and have life experiences. Go out, meet people, meet different kinds of people, go to different kinds of places. So I'm not saying, you know, you have to take foreign vacations for this. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying uh, go out with your parents to the nearby shop
Mm,
and the nearby market and nearby museum and the um, nearby zoo. So whatever it is, you have to get as many life experiences as possible.
mm,
And when you're older, you can start exploring stuff yourself, right? So
okay.
the more um, the more varied experiences you have and the more kinds of people you meet, all that will somehow find their way into your writing, and it will become a more real and more uh, um, um, layered, and will help with uh, making your writing better. That's what I would say.
Right, right. Those are fantastic tips. And I think, especially, the point of drawing from those experiences, like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
and yeah, I think that's
yeah.
really, really going to help kids, I'm sure. So I hope kids who are watching, you have taken those, suggestions in mind. And
Yes.
so next time when I ask you to do that, so you have to, I mean, then it's not like anymore like I'm telling you that. So yeah, Shruti is saying that too. So Shruti, before we go to a very quick, fun, rapid fire, I would like to take a couple of questions which came from the children. I mean, they just shared that with me before the session. So there's one question which is very interesting. It's not exactly about your writing, but the question says that in both your books, Manya Learns to Roar and Susie Will Not Speak, there was a really supportive friend,
Hmm.
for both the characters who had the speech issue. So, do you also have had a friend of that sort in your life, who has been supportive, uh, through your. So, I think the child didn't know about, you also having the stammering problem. So, the question was more generic with respect to whether you have had a friend like that. But since you, also spoke about how you also have that. So, yeah, is it true that, yes, you have had maybe such a friend who has been really supportive?
Yes. I won't say one friend. I have had multiple friends who have never laughed at me, or who have never considered me different. So all these, so I think all these friends have been a combination of the friends I have had, and it's not only friends; it's my family and um, my all the people around me. So I've been very fortunate that way. I have the uh, people who matter have always been very steadfastly loving and accepting. So that really helped me become what I am now. So, so although I have constantly had people who are laughing and who are uh, uh, bullying and taunting me, I've also had others who haven't cared.
Right, right,
So yes, so all the characters, the supportive characters in my books are all a combination of all the friends I've had, and
right.
I'm very, very thankful for them. And many of those friends and family are still, you know, close to me. So and I've only added many more excellent friends along the way. So I'm just a very fortunate person.
No, no. I think that's really so glad to know, because
Yeah,
I think that's how it is, right? I mean, sometimes while we do have a section of people, like you said, who would make fun or laugh, but I think we always do find that tribe,
yes,
who
yes,
love us for what we are. And I think that's really nice to know. So I'm sure that even the child would be happy to know that, especially, because the kids, they love the characters of the friends, even when I
yeah,
spoke to them about what they liked in the book.
yeah,
So yes, a lot of them did say that we liked the character of the friends, and that we took that message, how
right,
friendship
right,
is not just about playing together, it is also
yeah,
about being there for your friends. So that was
right.
lovely. Another one more question I would take, and then we would go to the rapid fire. So here the child is asking that, do you ever face a situation when you are struggling to get the words flowing? And if yes, how do you deal with it? Because I do face that at times, and it becomes difficult for me to express myself in a smooth manner. So I think basically it's more like the writer's block, I guess, what the child is asking about.
Okay.
So do you really face it? And yeah, how do you deal with it if you do?
Yes, I do face it. uh, Sometimes entire days I'm like I'm in front of a blank page. It's all in my head, but it's not coming out. So yeah, it happens. And like I said, if you write something, uh, even if you write one sentence, it is easy to go back and edit it rather than stare at the a blank page. So
Right.
so it's like it's okay if you want to draw a lovely landscape and nothing's coming. You at least start with a square house
Hmm.
and a triangle roof and triangle mountains. Start with that. Then you can add on. You can add a chimney. You can add a door. You can make it better. But staring at the blank page is it's no
Yeah.
use.
Yes, yes. I
Yeah.
think that
So
is
yes, it
so
is hard.
important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's so important to remember because normally I think what happens is we start feeling that, oh, it's not coming out as well, as in I'm not.
Yeah.
So I think, like, yeah,
Yes.
it's important to just write, like you said. I
Yes.
think that's very good advice. Um, and so Rohini says, very true, every experience can be woven into a story. Yes. And Sunila ma'am says something really sweet, which I agree with.
No,
uh,
no, I think you're being very kind.
no,
I'm
no,
just
no.
lucky to
I'm
have good
sure.
friends. That's all.
I'm
I just
sure
lucked
you.
out.
That's wonderful. Okay, so Shruti, we will do a very quick rapid fire, which is just to
Okay.
know you better. So, yes, my rapid fire is very safe and nice, which I tell all the authors. There- There's, so yeah, let's just go. So, my first question is if you could spend time with any of your book characters, which you've created, which character would you choose and why?
I think it would be um, Sridhar Ali, that is
Hmm.
Manya's teacher. I
Yes.
kind of like her. I I would like to get to know her better.
I agree. Actually, that's a very interesting and beautiful character,
Yeah.
created. In fact, I remember Manan also mentioned specifically about the character in his review.
Yes,
I
yes,
think a lot of
yes,
people, uh, loved the way. Yeah, I think that's a good choice there.
yeah.
Okay. The next one is coffee or tea. What's your preference?
Uh, Definitely tea.
Oh, okay. Somehow most of the authors choose tea, and I'm always half expecting some people to say coffee because I
No,
love
no, I.
coffee.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, but yeah, somehow almost everybody chooses, tea. Okay. Okay. A recent book which you read, which you really liked.
Okay, now I'm completely blanking out. I've read so many that they're
Oh,
all
okay.
crowding into my head now. Okay.
Anyone, maybe
No,
like anything which probably you can remember.
pass. I'm really not able to get it.
Okay, no, 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 that's absolutely fine. Okay. The next one is which place do you feel is better to sit and write at peace? Next to the beach, or in the lap of mountains, or in a quiet corner at your home?
Quiet corner at my home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
because if it's the mountain or the beach, I'll be running out all the time. So.
that's a good one. Yeah, I think you have a point because sometimes we feel those are really beautiful places to write, but it can actually be distracting, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
might want to.
definitely.
Okay, great. And my final question is there a genre of writing which you haven't explored yet, but you would probably, maybe like to explore in the coming months or years?
Yes, I'm attracted to writing free verse,
Oh,
but I have no idea about poetry or the meter or anything. So it's something that, someday I would like to do, but
yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
that's
lovely. We would look forward to that for sure.
but I don't know if that's going to happen, but if it does, I'll let you know.
Yes, definitely, definitely, Shruti. I think this was such a fabulous conversation, and I must tell you because I do see the statistics on top when I go live, and this has been the live session with the maximum audience engagement on Beyond the Box till date in terms of
Oh,
the viewership.
wow.
It shows me the statistics. So yes, you've been our,
I'm
the
so
most
honored.
watched
Thank you.
authors. So thank you so much for taking our time and talking to us about, your books and writing process. It was really a learning experience
It was
and it was so
lovely
much
talking
fun.
to you. Thanks a lot, Anupama. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. Thank you. So, to the audience also, thank you for joining us and, for
Yes.
posting so many comments.
Yes, thank you
And
all so much for being here.
yes, and so yes, I'll see you all soon with, the next featured author of the month in November. And of course, I'm not revealing it yet. We will be revealing it in the month of November. So, yes, bye, everyone.
Bye bye, and thank you.
Bye. Bye, Shruti.